Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin, and today we're going to be going over the brand new album and vinyl release from AESOP Rock, Black Hole Superette. So, this is the 10th full length solo LP from New York based rapper and producer AESOP Rock. 11th if you count Garbology, but I don't really count that as a solo album because that was a collaboration with Blockhead. But either way, AESOP Rock, he's done a lot of stuff over the years, continuing to pump out albums, even though he stopped touring after The Impossible Kid. And yeah, if you've seen some of my videos before, if you've seen like my best or my top 5 hip hop albums video, you know that I absolutely love AESOP Rock. He is my favorite rapper. I love like the poetry that he paints with his lyricism. I love the quirky production that he kind of has become known for since he started doing his own beats. I love just like his delivery, his flow. Yeah, and I've never really been like disappointed by an album of his. I think after Spirit World Field Guide, his quality did take a little bit of a dip. Like I didn't absolutely love everything on his last album of Integrated Tech Solutions. So I was hoping that with this album was kind of a bit of a return to form for him. And, I think there's moments on this album that really do shine. And there's some moments that fall a little bit flat for me. So before we get into the music itself, let's talk about the physical release. So the packaging on this album is really stellar. I was really impressed with not just like the quality of the actual outer sleeve itself, but everything that like came with it. So it's kind of hard to tell, but it's like kind of a holographic film on the actual exterior sleeve. You've got like obviously the main theme of Black Hole Superette, which is kind of like this quick mart convenience store that also leads into like another dimension, sort of like. I'm not going to get super into lyricism here, but the theme is just scattered throughout, especially with the artwork. You've got the inside, which kind of shows like the inside of the store. Again, that holographic like rainbow sheen on it, I just think is absolutely gorgeous. Well done. You've got the track listing with like different random items you would find in the Black Hole Superette, which is just really, really kind of like fun and on theme. So yeah, and they've got the actual credits for each track as well on here. And then it did not unfortunately come with like a poster insert or anything like that, but honestly like the artwork that went into everything here was really well done. The sleeves themselves, and I will be transferring this to a better exterior sleeve at some point, but they've got like these like what looks like the beginning of the portal to whatever like dimension you're entering, which looks like it's through like one of the drink refrigerators. He's got all these drinks that looks like they're kind of being sucked in with some light behind it. And then I did not get they had a deluxe version of this available. I did not get that version because honestly, I just couldn't afford it at the time it was released. But the regular version, I think is really cool no matter what. And then you've got the actual record itself, which is kind of hard to tell on camera, but it's it's like a clear black. So it's not just like your standard black vinyl. It is more of a clear black, but again, not exactly the easiest to tell on my mediocre webcam. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the physical release. The volume quality is a little bit low. Nothing that like really hinders the listening experience, but it's not super, super high quality, which, it's not the end of the world. Like I've definitely had worse. The crispness, like there's no pops, there's no crackle. So overall, the actual like pressing quality itself is pretty decent. I just wish it was a little bit louder. So with the physical release out of the way, let's talk about the music itself. But before we do, guys, if you could please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you've checked out this album. If you haven't, go check it out. All that stuff helps out my channel a ton. So without further ado, let's get into the track list.
I'm too cold, my temperature is just too low. I put antifreeze to these.
So this is a long album. It comes in at 18 songs at just over an hour in length. And so because of that, to just like not make this an unnecessarily long video, I am going to kind of speed through a couple songs that I don't feel like need my full analysis, but I am still going to go through a track by track breakdown of this album. And I think just right off the bat, the first thing I'll say is that I do feel like it's a little bloated. Like I think some of these tracks probably could have been cut and it would have made for an overall better listening experience. But that being said, there are some absolute bangers on here. And one of those is the opening song of Secret Knock. I really like this one. It starts off with these really kind of like spacey, trippy instrumentals. His flow comes in super hard here. His delivery is just as tight and driven as always. The drums and bass here really complement the more kind of like trippy psych synth lines that are going throughout. And yeah, it's a really, really fun song. After that, we get into Checkers, which similarly has kind of a very spacey, like kind of dream-like synth lead as the main driving part of the instrumentals. When the drums and bass really do kind of kick in, it reminds you of how talented a producer AESOP can be when he's at his best. And his flow here, again, very pointed, very sharp. He's got fantastic flow. It's one of the best things about him is like how solid and reliable his delivery is on every single project that he does. I do think that there's going to be a few songs on this album where he needs to change it up a little bit, and I was looking for something a little bit more, boundary pushing from him. But on these first two opening songs, he's got a really, really good foot in the door on what I was hoping was going to be a really solid, fun album all the way throughout. Unfortunately, though, we then get into Movie Night. And Movie Night, the delivery here, his flow is pretty much fairly standard AESOP rock fare. It's nothing like too unique from anything that he's ever done before. And the instrumentation here just feels a little muted. Like I kept wanting a little bit more from it. It almost feels unfinished in certain parts. And that's something that I can say for the next song as well, which is EWR Terminal A Gate 20. It does have some cool kind of like spacey synths to start off, but then it falls into a very similar beat as Movie Night. And his flow doesn't really change up at all. I feel like one of these two songs probably could have been left off, and we wouldn't have missed either one of them too much. But after that is 1010 Wins, and I do like this one a lot. So it's got some funk, it's got some groove to it. It's got a good feature by Arm & Hammer, who I wasn't familiar with until this song. And it does get a little bit playful in certain parts, which I do think is really cool. The hook here is undeniably very catchy, and it is piquing my interest back in a little bit. Not a great sign, though, that at track 5 of 18, I need my interest like re-gotten. And so by my first listen, I was like, all right, hopefully, we've kind of weathered the storm and the rest of this is only going to be uphill. And then we get into the song that I was the most excited to listen to, which is So Be It. And the reason I was so excited for this song was that it's got a feature from Open Mike Eagle. And I absolutely love Open Mike Eagle, even though his last couple projects like weren't my absolute favorite. His 2019 album, 2021, maybe it's 2021. Anyway, his album Anime Trauma and Divorce is one of my favorite albums of the past few years. And I was really looking forward to like him dropping a like sick verse on an AESOP song. But unfortunately, he only features in the chorus. So he doesn't actually have a verse. He just like is singing the chorus, which, doesn't take away from the song because I still think it's a really good song. I think the instrumentations here, some of the best on the entire album. And I do love AESOP's verses throughout. I think he's got like 2 or 3 of them. But I was really disappointed when I realized that Open Mike Eagle didn't actually have a full verse. So I'm trying to look at this song objectively and not just like how disappointed I am that I didn't get what I was looking for. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's still a good song. I do really like Mike Eagle's vocals on the chorus, and it is still very catchy. After that is Send Help, which is probably one of like my not, I don't want to say favorite tracks, but it's definitely on the higher echelon of tracks on this album for me. It's really fun. It's playful. The hook is really just kind of silly and goofy. It's got some cool like psych guitars with like some keys that kind of drive the majority of the beat forward. And I do like the backing like drums and bass here as well. Not a super like crazy long song, but I think it's like just long enough, which is more than like a couple of the other songs on this album. And then after that is John Something, which is the first of a few obligatory kind of like borderline spoken word songs on here. I feel like Ace always kind of has 1 or 2 that are more like story driven and straightforward than some of like the lyrical word games that he gets up to on a lot of his songs. And this is just kind of a fun one. It's not my favorite song, and again, the instrumentation is a little like familiar and muted here as well. But I do like the style that he does here. I don't think he needed to do it a couple other times, which he did on the album. I think once was enough, but this was probably my favorite example of it. It's got some funky bass and piano to kind of kick off the track, which does separate apart just instrumentally than a lot of the other songs on the album. After that is what had the potential to be probably my favorite song on the album, which is Ice Sold Here. It's got this really punchy, almost like crunchy, fuzzy beat. His delivery here is the most unique and stands out amongst all the other songs he's done on the album. And I absolutely love this track. My only issue is I think it's a little short. It's like just over 2 minutes. And I wish that he either fleshed this out a little bit more or did something similar on a couple of the other songs on the album, because this was the first song that I really kind of felt like he was moving in a slightly new direction, or even like going back to some of his more playful stuff off like Impossible Kid or None Shall Pass. There's like some Middle Eastern sounding guitars that kind of come in towards the end. It closes out with some really decent like scratching. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. But then we get into what I think is probably like the weakest stretch of the album, starting with Costco, which is a fairly forgettable song. The instrumentation here again feels very muted, feels like it's unfinished. It feels like it could have just given a little bit more in any of the aspects that are making up the backing beat. The delivery itself, his flow is pretty standard. There's nothing really that differentiates it from any of the other like songs on this album that he's kind of doing the same thing on. And yeah, I don't really think this song needed to be on the album. The next song, Bird School, is very similar for the most part. It does have some good scratching at the end. The instrumentation's a little bit more interesting, but again, the flow is not that different. His and I don't want to make it sound like it's bad, because I love his delivery. I love his flow. There's a reason he's my favorite rapper of all time. But I just wanted something more. I wanted him to like take a few more risks on this album, just as far as stylistically goes. I mean, lyrically, he's as good as he's ever been, but like I think that he could have presented those ideas in a way that were just slightly more interesting. Then we get into the second of his like kind of borderline, not really spoken word, but just like a lot more muted, less rhythmic rhymes with Snail Zero. And this, from what I can tell, is just a song about finding a snail. And they definitely take some weird twists and turns, so it's not like that surface level. But it's again, it's a fine song. I do enjoy it. I think it's has its place on the album, but like it's not good enough quite to pull me out of the funk of the last two songs. And then we get into Charlie Horse. And Charlie Horse is probably the only other song besides 10 out of 10 Wins that has like some real feature, like defining features on it, with Homeboy Sandman and Lupe Fiasco. I like both of those artists respectively, and I was hoping that they would really bring something unique and fun to this song. But all three of their verses here, like AESOP's, Lupe's, and Homeboy's, all are fairly mid in my opinion. The instrumentation's not bad. Homeboy Sandman, while I do like him, he's very hit and miss for me. Like some of his songs are really, really good and super catchy, and some are just like not very good. And I think he kind of finds some space in the middle here. Lupe, I think, is better just in general, and I do think his verse is better here, but it's still like nothing that's really super exciting. Thankfully, then we get into Steel Wool, and Steel Wool is another like probably top 4, top 5 song for me on here. It's got some twang in the beginning. The beat's got some swagger. It's got some attitude. His delivery is quicker here, something that I've been missing on the majority of this album, like really showing off his talent as a rapper, which is easy to forget because he's just so like consistent with what he does that like sometimes when he kind of does something a little bit extra, you're like, oh shit, like he can actually do that too. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this song. And then we get into the last 4 songs on the album, starting with Black Plums. It's got kind of like a chill, groovy, laid back beat, more so than the rest of the chill, laid back drum and bass that he's been doing. Not drum and bass, but like rhythms that he's been doing on the majority of this album. And yeah, it's a fine song, but another one that I feel like probably could have been left out. Like if this was maybe a deluxe edition with some of these extra songs added on, I wouldn't have minded, which is funny because I'm generally very against deluxe editions, but like I just don't think that like a lot of these songs needed to be here, at least like 3 or 4 of them at this point. Like if this was a 14 song album, I think it would have been like that much better of an experience. But anyway, then we get into the Red Phone, and I actually do really like this song. It started off like the first time I listened to it, I like lost interest within the first 20 seconds, but then it like grabbed me and kind of pulled me in. It's got some like weird off tempo like piano parts, some weird sort of like off tempo guitars. The hook here is really like weird but like strangely catchy as well. There's this like wind chime or like xylophone sound that he's using throughout the majority of like the first part of the beat that just shouldn't make sense, but it does work. And I do really like how he kind of changes up his flow and delivery here at certain parts, and kind of changes his tempo as well. Like playing around with song structure and delivery is something I've always appreciated of him, and I definitely was missing on this album. And then we get into Himalayan Yak Chew, kind of just more of the same as far as the instrumentation goes. His flow and delivery here is still pretty solid, better than a few of the other songs that were kind of like missing for me, but overall, nothing like super exciting that's like keeping me engaged. And then we close with Unbelievable Shenanigans. And this song, it's got a cool kind of vocal feature here. And it's, it definitely feels like a finishing song. There's like some strings that come in towards the end. There's some like, light guitar parts backing like your standard beat. And his flow is a little bit slower, more reflective. The lyrics here definitely are kind of painting an end to whatever this crazy journey is that we just went on. And it's not a bad song. It's not like an amazing way to end the album. I feel like this whole album, he was really focusing on his lyrics, on the story he was trying to tell, on the picture and just journey he was trying to create. But I do feel like some of the production and some of the instrumentation suffered because of that. And yeah, overall, I mean, like, this is probably, in my opinion, his weakest album since Bazooka Tooth. And still not bad. Like, even him at his worst is still better than like 90% of the rappers out there. But yeah, I was really hoping for something more on this one, especially for how long it was, especially like the amount of attention to detail that went into not just like the release, but the story and the theme and the art, that like everything that surrounded this. And you get a lot of that in the lyricism, and you get a lot of that in like his actual storytelling. But unfortunately, I feel like the production just fell flat, and there's like the whole thing just felt bloated. There's definitely some songs that could have been left off. So overall, I'm giving this a much lower grade than I ever would have thought, even with how much I did enjoy the packaging. I think they could have done a slightly better job just by including like an insert or a poster. So I'm giving this a C plus. Never thought I'd see a day where I gave an Aesop rock album lower than a B. But yeah, I mean, outside, I want to say at least half the album I do really enjoy listening to, and then of the other half, there's some songs that I kind of enjoy, and some that I just like kind of forget about. So that's why like high middle of the road is what I'm feeling on this one. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments if you've checked it out. If you haven't, go listen to it. And as always, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.